Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of FormuLATTE. Today, we're here with our special guest, Mr. Suvrat Bansal.
Mr. Bansal got his Bachelor's of Engineering from Malavia National Institute of Technology, Jaipur, before getting his Master's in Business Administration at Columbia University in Finance. Hi, Mr. Bansal. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
That's great. So, to start, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and where you came from?
So I grew up in India, north part. After school, I did my engineering as Shreyansh was highlighting on in engineering, and then following that, typical job hunt and led me to the software industry. I developed an early inclination for database systems. Found myself within a year coming to Americas, working for Wall Street firm, building their data systems. And then rest is history, just early days, had the opportunity to do a lot of ground up work and, career progress from there.
That's cool. So, as a kid, was there anything like that really sparked your interest in like technology, the sector where you work right now? Like, just like a quick spark?
Yeah, so came frankly a bit late. I mean, early days it was mostly like building a career, proving yourself, working hard, not really realizing what I was very good at. I mean, I was pretty good at these whole data systems and connecting the dots. But after I did my MBA, I was very fortunate. Like when I went back to Morgan Stanley, my seniors, gave me an opportunity to introduce me to different desks. So I spent, a few months with research, few months with trading, few months with structured products, and everywhere I went, they really appreciated my background in data. So they leaned more on it because they kept saying that was the biggest problem. I mean, and it was also because things were becoming very digital, and there was a lot of data to deal with in financial services. So a few of my advisors basically said, look, like you're at the top of your food chain in what you're doing. You're good at it. Do you want to really leave that, start from scratch in something, which I was genuinely interested in finance. And then I had to make up my mind, right? Am I going to be as good in next 10 years building a career in finance, or do I stay with it within finance industry and really excel more in the data? And then I did the latter, which was mostly like coming from the collective feedback. Frankly, I didn't have that much awareness or confidence per se to say, this is what I'm going to define as a career line. I mean, early days was mostly like doing well in a job. And then that turned into a spark, right? And then I started to explore more and go deeper and wider and, took on more senior roles and, kind of just, defined a whole new chapter in my life.
Yeah, and you were talking about Wall Street being in JP Morgan, or sorry, Morgan Stanley,
Yeah.
which is a really, really very affluent firm. So I wanted to ask how your skills in finance and database systems kind of led into that, and what are some challenges you faced?
Yeah, it's look, I think 20 years back, if you think about it, the number of systems a particular firm was using was not that many, right? I mean, mostly operational systems. People were trying to digitalize their processes in the middle and back office. Not much going on in the front office, Bloomberg terminals, etc. Like a lot has changed now, right? I mean, the smallest division within my last firm had 800 systems, 400 registered systems, 400 to 800 around what we call end user computing systems. So the landscape has shifted tremendously in terms of, maybe like boon of digitalization or people's interest in technology or automation. But what it does to data is it becomes more and more difficult to bring things together, right? So if you think about, you walk in, you're doing a function, you try to optimize it, you'll get a system, you'll start to automate some of your processes. It creates data, it takes data, it creates data, right? That's every system, that's what it do, whether you're putting the data in or you're taking it from like market data providers or third party data. It finally produces a data set. That data set is now useful to another function. So now historically you're transmitting data from system to system to system, and then someone in the senior management would say, can I get a wholesome picture of what the hell is going on, right? Or regulators will say, like, can you prove it to us that you're running this firm in a well-functioning way? Those things became incredibly hard, right? So while 20 years back it was a lot of automation and insights, now it's like, how do you deal with the complexity of this constant movement of data? And then all these challenges come in, like as data moves, there are leakages, there are duplications, there are issues with that data that doesn't connect naturally. People like, you acquire a firm, it comes with its own systems now. How do you integrate all of that and create a single book of record across your clients, across finance books? So this thing becomes a sprawl, right? And now from data perspective, you're supposed to keep managing that sprawl to bring things together. So it has become incredibly difficult. I mean, it has become a dedicated field and practice, as you guys, must have heard of, or as you know, and there are various aspects to it, because you have to trace the entire life cycle of that information from the point of entry to the point of consumption or insights, and just connecting all those dots, and also thinking about where it adds most value, because it's really like it's something you can keep chasing your tail on. Like, it's so much to do, so you have to always think about what adds most value to the firms in which area, and then how do you prioritize things.
I do think it's interesting how you said that the firm at Morgan Stanley appreciated your background in data analytics, and I think it's important to realize that every one of these firms, be it banking, be it law, every one of these firms need all types of jobs. Like Chase Bank doesn't have just bankers there; it has economists, it has lawyers, it has a data analytics team, it has everything, and it needs to be comprehensive. And people don't understand that. They think that or especially people our age, they think that if I want to work in finance, I have to work at an investment banking firm or something like that. But every sort of firm will need someone that is knowledgeable in finance. And I think it's important that you realize that we have all these different sectors and all these different firms.
I think that's a very good summary and very well put, Saransh, because if you think about, you take JP Morgan, for example, or any such Wall Street firm, today the biggest labor force is in technology. Mm-hmm. And the biggest budgets are in technology. But what people forget is, technology is a unique function. Unlike finance, which has a dedicated role, technology is supposed to serve everyone. Right? So every function needs technology. And then technology on its own has to think about how to drive the innovation forward and how to bring new capabilities. So they have to constantly not only help people in what they're trying to achieve, but also give them new ideas to move forward. So technology does become a big driver. And, if you walk in and you look at, they function like JP Morgan is like another Google today. They have tremendous amount of data. They have tremendous amount of technical workforces, thousands of people globally in every office. So it's actually very well said. But I think I would also say that if you talk to really good, effective, any functional person, like you talk to a private equity analyst, they're data jockeys, right? They're very, very good at analyzing data. Massive amount of data is thrown at them for every company they analyze in a very short period. They have a month to put together an investment memo in front of the management committee as well as the company. And within a month, they're analyzing the entire history of this firm and all the operations data, revenue data, comparative landscape. And when I work and I've had the opportunity to work with these guys, I have tremendous respect for how much are they able to synthesize that fast. So I think data is just how you practice it, but I feel in every function today, people are practicing in some shape or form data skills to be good at their jobs.
Right, and data analytics is something that it's a wide range. And a lot of students like myself, they want to go into some field that has that analytics background. But analytics is, again, a very broad term. So as a person who's seen the shift from less digitization to becoming more adhered to technology, what are some key things that people like me and Saran should do to maybe find their first scene in that field?
Yeah, look, I always tell people, because I feel data is going to play just a general role in everything you do, just be good at basic skills, whether it's, people look at things like spreadsheets or Python as I'm not that interested. I think just think of it as calculators, right? So you use calculators early days, you're using different skills today. It's finally to be good at your job. That's number one. And then it really comes down to what you want to do. As I said, if you choose to go into finance or insurance or technology or become an entrepreneur, I think you'll deal with technology. I mean, that's for sure. Do you really want to go and practice technology as an area of expertise? Then yes, then there is a whole, once you get in, depending on the industry you are in. So I always tell people, you can, think about you can enter into an industry, and then you have to learn about that industry over time, because you're not going to learn the complexity of how a bank works day one, right? But you're going to start to pick that up. But to the extent you keep your mind focused on what is the value of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, and you can ask your seniors or managers, why do we do this, and what's the value we are contributing to the overall value of this firm, right? I mean, it's just that focus helps. However loosely defined it is, that focus helps, because it's very easy to get lost in the doing part and the process part. But I feel it's very important for everyone to relate to the value you're contributing to the firm, right? Whether it's the clients, internal stakeholders. So I feel in any function, whether you're in technology or not in technology, to the extent you're using technology effectively to contribute value back to the business and to grow that business, I think you will find your way in how you want to chart that, and for your own professional career.
Yeah, I mean, technology isn't going anywhere, right? Like I hear people saying like, "Oh, I think this is bad for the environment. I think this is like the detrimental effect that technology is going to happen." And while those things might be true, like sure, I can completely understand that there are some cases. It's a benefit. It's a benefit to everything. It's a benefit even to our podcast here. Like we're thinking about making a website. We need technology to post our episodes, things
Absolutely.
like that. And it's like it's everywhere you go, and it's important to not get bogged down by if I need to work in technology, I need to work at an AI, like a place that makes AI, because I mean AI is the future, but it's everywhere. It's not.
You're 100% right, but I think look goes back to, I always say, like, to the extent you are creatively thinking about the applications of those technology, you're always gonna figure out a good way of using it. Like even with AI, you don't have to necessarily worry about, am I gonna learn how to write the best model which OpenAI will produce, or Anthropic will produce. But if you rather focus on, can I use these technologies most effectively in what I'm doing day to day, I think that creates a lot more value, because they're always, if you're truly interested, there's nothing wrong in being truly interested and then doing the model development. But it's as important to use these technologies for what you do on a day-to-day basis. And I find people who are taking it their responsibility, even in, like, again, going back to private equity, like it's traditionally a banking oriented, relatively focused on like investment banking advisory business. And the people I know, they take it as their responsibility to educate their entire firm on the benefits of using these technologies, while also making them aware of the risks of it, right? In terms of what should we be worried about. So I think if you play that leading role in like making yourself aware, playing with things, right? I mean, I always say, like, on the weekend, just, try different things. I had to, when I became senior, it was becoming very hard to learn new technologies on the job. So I'll always take coursework on the weekend to keep myself hands-on. And the only way I could go and direct the implementation of a technology was not relying just on someone said something in a conference or someone is trying to sell something, but to like try it on my own and see, will this be good for the function or the role or the business I am trying to improve. And if I was personally satisfied with it, then at least I can take accountability for it. If I'm just hearing about it from someone, then it's very hard for me to drive that by taking full accountability for it. So I think to the extent you are trying things on your own and then saying like, hey, this can be good, worth investigating, let me create some consensus to drive the business or the group of people I work with to the next level by using this technology, I think that's equally effective even if you're not building that technology.
Right. And doing like prior research, I saw that Clarista was an AI co-pilot integrated business.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like right now in high school and college, they say that AI it's detrimental to creative thinking and that you are not like, it's shunned upon. But what is the extent to which AI can be helpful, and like how is it integrated into modern day life?
Yeah, look, I kind of think quite different. It's not detrimental. I mean, that way we can say any kind of automation can be initially detrimental because it forces people to change the way they're working and to explore new things. But it's like human life, right? I mean, we are all driven to add some value by being relevant to the society and we are operating in. And I think that values just sometimes bring change, right? And then change is hard. We go to office, we all have busy lives, and we are constantly adopting and adapting to change, and it's not that easy. So I can understand the sense of fear and the threat initially anything imposes, but over time you adopt it. I mean, social media was and it still is a big issue when it comes to the mental health of kids. But like, can all of you imagine not having social media because of that? So I think it's like, how do you define and pursue the benefits while understanding the risks and the issues which come with it, and how do you create an ecosystem where you can manage the risks effectively? I think that's number one. Look, AI, I think, for me, in my entire 25 years of corporate life and now 3-4 years as an entrepreneur, I haven't been this excited after internet, right, of a technology which is so revolutionary. And the reason I say that is because, any technology which is revolutionary in my mind has to be extremely relatable. And when you look at Gen AI, it's extremely relatable. Like, when a kid is asking something and it responds as well as a teacher would respond, I'm not saying it's supposed to replace anything, but it's helpful, right? Versus waiting for sending a note to the teacher or waiting for 10 minutes of time you can get with that teacher to understand something. If you have these so-called assistants for you to help you grow faster, to satisfy your curiosity much earlier and to take you to the next level of learning, I think is not very good. I use it all the time, right? I have a biggest proponent of this because, again, like when we were bringing up our kids, my friends used to say, oh, they monitor internet traffic, what size our kids are browsing. And I'm like, I don't do any of that because slowly and slowly they'll need to learn to navigate all of this while understanding the risks of it. Rather, we just keep a very open environment, right? We are here, we talk about it. We'll talk about our foibles as growing up as kids, so our kids know that mistakes are acceptable, right? When they're made, to the extent you learn from it and you talk about it. I think that's a little bit of every new experience. So I feel it's hugely beneficial in what it's doing. It will bring new challenges to the society in many different ways. There is a lot of issue with the authenticity of things, but to the extent you're aware of that, I think it starts with that. Are you aware of both the costs and the benefits of these technologies? And then I think human mind is smart enough to choose the right thing.
Artificial intelligence is such a blanket term, though, because I feel like when people think about artificial intelligence, they're only thinking about, like ChatGPT or what's that new one, DeepSeek or whatever it's called. People don't realize that, like for example, your company, Clarista or data analytics, that's also artificial intelligence. And I think where we get mixed up with the detrimental aspect is when we're talking about, like cheating on your homework by searching up answers in ChatGPT versus using data analytics to fix like an entire, because my econ teacher was actually telling me about there was a problem with a bank on like the West Coast in that really rich part. I'm forgetting the name right now. There was like this big bank and it broke, and then only through the help of data analytics was it able to get back on its feet and help this. So that's what AI is useful for, and we can't rule out everything, because if we were to rule out AI and we were to say like AI is detrimental, period, no, there has to be like some sort of like back and forth in between, like where we go like AI is positive here, AI is negative here. But even where I think everything is negative in some way or the other, not just artificial intelligence. Like you're telling me that TV, like watching too much TV isn't negative for our kids. It is.
Yeah.
But do we see as many people complaining about it? No, because as you said, we're scared about the future. And it's important to, rather than be scared, like, okay, fear is fine, but fear turns bad when we start taking things away because of the fear.
Right. And I wanted to interject here. I think our like perception of technology is a little bit misconstrued in that we see a lot of like movies or like digital media about how AI is going to take over the world. Take Terminator, for example. Like it's very far-fetched, but it's still like a threat to just modern day life and how AI is going to take over, which is, again, very far-fetched, but you want to move past that and think about how the real world implications are much more beneficial.
Yeah, I think, look, both the comments are very very real, and I would fully agree with that. Look, what happens is just negative things affect us more. So I mean, the news sometimes, just to be catchy, sometimes can be more negative. But like I always tell people, like, what are you better off day to day, right? Like, when you're typing and it completes your words and suggests things, it's traditional AI models, right? Developed on natural language processing. I mean, there's a lot of productivity you gain day to day in auto-correcting your sentences when you're typing, or, like anything can be questioned that, well, you should not use those technologies or tools like Grammarly or anything because you should learn proper grammar. I get it, but then, you should not use calculators and spreadsheets and programming languages and just do everything mental math and paper, right? So I don't think we want to take constantly ourselves back, but as you advance forward, it will bring some new risks. And to the extent, as you guys are pretty well aware of these things already, like to the extent you're aware of the risks it creates and watch out for it, when it gets excessive, then it's fine.
Right. And just like as kids ourselves, like our team right here, and like me and Saransh, we're very like exposed to ChatGPT and AI already. And some people, instead of being like, "Oh, I want to use it," they want to be like, "I want to create it." So, what can some people do to, find their initial exposure into that industry as well?
Yeah. So, look, the if you like, if I trace my steps back, right? Like, if you start with basic coursework on how natural language processing work, you'll very quickly, within months, be developing models which you use in your cell phones. I mean, in 3 to 4 months, you can get to development of natural language processing models and learning about them and thinking about how to train language to predict your next set of words. If you think about generative AI, it's like, I dimensionally, I don't know what scale to put in, but if you just take that it's forward from predicting words and sentences to generating sentences, it's not a far-fetched thought once you crack the first part of it. So I feel like, for me, like, what's very good is sometimes you start with the basics, just the way when we are kids, we are starting with the basics of maths and multiplication tables, right? We don't think math at a PhD level day one, and we also don't feel overwhelmed by it, right? By the time we are hitting multivariate calculus, we're ready for it, right? So it's not like something you worry about in your kindergarten or first grade. You start with the numbers and the just the acclimation of it with it, and just taking interest in it. And our whole schooling system has been structured to and designed for kids to learn and take interest in it, right? I think we haven't done that great a job in things like AI, but because these are derived forms and derived studies of mathematics at the end of the day. But just because schooling is not doing, I encourage kids to just do it in their spare time. And it's, like, I as a professional did it because I'm genuinely interested in this and I wanted to make sure I'm bringing these capabilities back to the, businesses I was working for. But now that everyone is using it in their personal space, it's worth just experimenting and learning some basics of it. And I think then it becomes very easy to connect the dots on how generative AI is working. And then you can keep going down that road if you choose to. Or you can say, I think now I have good understanding of it and let me think about how to apply this. So I would encourage people to just start as they start with mathematics and say, let me learn the basics. Like, learning the basics of AI, traditional AI, forecasting models and, anomaly detect is extremely easy. It's, yes, you need some programming language acclimation, Python, R, you choose whatever you want to. And those languages have become so easy now, right? I mean, you can find a ton of literature on it. There are co-pilots even for languages now, so it can complete your code. But it starts with interest, right? I mean, if you're not interested in something, you won't do it. So if you were not interested in mathematics, you won't be learning multivariate calculus at some point in your life, right? But it's just about taking some interest to at least satisfy the level 1 curiosity, in my view. And that also sets you up for a very good foundation that even when you're not building it, when you're using it, you start to connect the dots on what you're using, how it's forming itself, and how it's coming in front of you. So that's generally my suggestion, when I'm pretty sure there are other ways to get there as well.
And I think it is coming into school a little bit, actually. I think we're seeing a little bit more of a transition into using AI, because apparently when we graduate, there's going to be like a new AP class introduced. It's called AP Cybersecurity.
Awesome.
Right? And there's like there's little things that we're just making. And as like someone who runs a company about AI, and we'll get into this a little more into detail, but coming out of the workforce, we're seeing a lot of kids who major in something like computer science or data analytics. They're saying, I'm having trouble finding a job. And as someone who I'm sure has engaged in the hiring process at some point, what do you look for in an ideal candidate, so our viewers can know, like, how do we know this?
That's a very good question. And, just taking my previous answer forward, Saransh, the way we hire people is we go back to the same fundamental skills, right? Like, are you good at logical thinking? So we'll ask logical questions. Are you coming in, like, we're clearly expecting people to be good at a couple of technical skills, because it's going to be a technical role, especially if you're involved in providing services to our clients or involved in product development. We will test people in their Python and SQL. Their two languages mostly get used in the data processing space. that just proves to us that we bring a lot of fresh graduates from colleges. We're doing another round right now in our team to hire fresh graduates, and they don't have a lot of work experience in this, but if there is a demonstrated interest in it, like I did this on the side project. Not everyone contributes to GitHub, but we'll ask, like, do you have any contributions? And we just look at what's the general interest level of this person. Is this person looking just for a job to enter because we are an AI firm, or is there something which is genuinely making this person curious about things, right? And then we also see, I was talking to my head of tech, and I was telling him, like, at the end of the day, sincerity matters, right? When people come in, we hire a lot of fresh graduates, we invest a lot of time in training them, and very early days start giving them exposures to the clients and how the actual real world works. But right there, the sincerity of listening and summarizing what you're hearing and following up either internally with the teams or back to the client. I mean, you guys will be surprised, like 80% people don't crack that part. And I mean, there is no skill in it, right? It's just interest, right? It's just taking something seriously. And I have to chase, like, as a founder, like, hey, we gave you this exposure, you were in that meeting, can you send me something around that? So that also tells me that sometimes we focus a lot on, like, these quantitative skills. The fact is 50% of it is just soft skills, right? Being a good human being, being sincere, taking interest, improving your communication skill. Not everyone is really good at, you guys seem to be awesome at all the communication, look at, hosting podcasts, but not everyone is that expressive, right? So we give them a lot of chance to open up, to communicate well. But if we don't see that progress, unfortunately, that journey cannot continue, right? So we give a lot of time. We're very thoughtful when someone is not working out, to give chance and chance and chance, because it's very hard process for us to bring someone in, and we take personal responsibility for why is this person not working out. Maybe it's us. Maybe we're not giving the right direction. But having finally given all that thought, there might be a time where, like, you're not just taking enough interest. So I would, keep that 50% of the soft side in mind, guys, which just makes a awesome person awesome, essentially. There's nothing to it. And then I think combine it with some sincere interest, and there'll be a lot of opportunities for people like that. We end up interviewing close to 30 people before we hire one position. So it tells you that, it's not like we're looking for some really hard things. It's just finding the right basic things are hard.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. As a high school student, we're very, like, anxious, I guess, about the job hiring process. I mean, everything we do in high school and college is to, guide us to that.
Yeah.
So we've kind of been dancing around this topic, but I want to pivot directly into it. What is Clarista, and how does it impact everyone?
Yeah, look, the whole seed of Clarista, it started much earlier, like I would say almost 10 years back. Because when you start to lead a function, you start to see every deficiency in process, in technology, in the way things are going on. And generally your first reaction is, I as an individual can solve it, right? So I think that's the first seed of entrepreneurship in your idea. Like, I can figure out a better way of doing it. But if you can figure out a better way of doing it, then why aren't you doing it, right? That's the immediate challenge. So then you try your best to first do it in the environment you are in. And then you reach at a point where you've tried all that and you figure out that there are things which just needs a fresh approach. Mm-hmm. And then the fundamental idea, like, it requires research and R&D, like, and is it worth asking an employer to invest that kind of time and money in that research? So I made up my mind that, look, if I want to do something, to build something fresh and new in a different way, then I have to do it on my own dime, right? Whether it's external money or my own money, and not through a job, right? So that led to me leaving. But essentially, Clarista was all about, if you look at going back to 20 years back, when we were bringing information together to form sense of it from different systems, there were some traditional methods which are still very talked about, which is like aggregate all the data, right? And from my experience working with especially frontline teams, I realized that people are not big consumers of repeatable reports every day, right? People have questions and they want answers, right? And the questions and answers change as time progresses. Markets change, I mean, I'm not sure if any of you follow the markets, but markets change very fast, right?
Yeah.
News come very fast. So people don't have the same questions, and hence they don't want to consume the same reports all the time. There is a place for that, like risk management and operations functions, where you're constantly looking at things to make sure you're monitoring things for the overall integrity of what information is being produced. But in a lot of frontline functions, that's not the case. So I felt that these older technologies and the older methods are just not suitable for that, right? You want things to flow much more seamlessly from anywhere. You don't have time to pre-aggregate everything. So it finally comes down to seeking clarity much faster, which gave the name of Clarista. And we designed then fundamental systems to plug into information from wherever it sits so that you don't have to move it, centralize it, warehouse it. And when we launched, we were the only one talking about these technologies. Now, big firms, Microsoft, Salesforce, ServiceNow, every company is now realizing that if you want to advance AI, you can't wait for people to bring their data to you. So they're now opening up. They're sharing more data within platforms. They're asking companies to adopt those frameworks. But that's what we started with. And then on top of it, we build the artificial intelligence layers to do the discovery of what you're asking. Like, when you have a question, that question needs to translate itself into a set of, data instructions, for lack of a better word. And the data for those data instructions might be sitting in different systems, right? So it's a 3-part process of interpretation, translation, and then go and fetch, right? And then compile those answers back from different data systems through AI. So in a public space like Gen AI, you have all that information gathered from, let's say, public sources, internet and websites. In a corporate environment, just think about that in the same way. All that information is sitting in those hundreds of systems. And if you wait for all of that to somehow come together and centralize, like OpenAI didn't centralize all the information. It just learned from all the information, right? So it's the same challenge and problem at every corporate level, that we don't have the time to build new models and train them on centralized information for billions of dollars. But how do you use these technologies on proprietary data, which is only trained on public data? And that's what Clarista does, right? It provides those AI capabilities to corporates to really use functions like ChatGPT on data sitting anywhere in any form.
A common theme among like the guests we've interviewed that are like entrepreneurs is like they had a market and then they found an issue in the market and then they set out to solve that issue. With you, our first guest, Mr. Arnav Mishra, and I believe our 5th guest, Mr. Michael Rosenberg, I keep seeing this theme, like we're curious, so we found a problem. And I think curiosity, as you were mentioning with like your hiring process, I think curiosity is so important. My macro teacher, she emphasizes it to me a lot. She's like, I'm sure you know about like recommendation letters for college. And she's like, it doesn't matter like what grade you finish with in my class, if you show like you're curious throughout the entire year and you're like raising your hand, you're asking questions, you're doing this, then I will give you a recommendation letter, the most shining recommendation letter. And I think like the more I'm talking to these people about like hiring processes, not just here, but me and Shreyas, we went to this event a couple weeks ago. It was called the Career Connections event at the high school, right? And we met all these people who graduated from Monroe Township High School, and we saw like how they like where they're working right now. And they just kept mentioning like, be curious about your field, stay active with like the new up and coming trends in your field. And I think it's especially important with things like data analytics because it's changing so rapidly.
Exactly.
Like, we're not saying like data analytics is not something that we were aware of at the time, 1960s, 1970s. I think it's more of like a 21st century kind of model. And even so, like 2015, 2016, I feel like that's where it really started to like push and like keep going forward, right? And my original, just going back to like what I was originally saying, is like, without curiosity, you cannot become an entrepreneur. And that's why we started our podcast in the first place too. We were curious, like, what can we do to fix the problem in our high school? Because we didn't really touch upon this yet, but the problem in our high school that we saw is like, all of these people, they say they wanted to go into the world of business, right? You ask the majority of the high schoolers, they say, I'm going to go into business when I grow up. Yeah. But as I was saying about AI, business, it's such like a broad thing.
Yes.
Like data analytics, finance, accounting, economics, things like this. And it's like, it's important to have like a niche that you're interested in it and following the trends. Like, I'm really interested in economics. Like, I want to become a lawyer when I grow up, but I really like learning about econ and like, especially macroeconomics, like learning about like the government and how they influence like the economy on a daily basis. And I think that because I'm curious about it, it's something that I want to like do in college and beyond college. And you know, that it all just connects with Clarista. You said like people want questions and they want their answers to different questions like now at this time, and they're not going to wait. Anyone can go on a Q&A site and type into ChatGPT, hey, here's this data. Can you like sort it or compile it or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I've done it multiple times as well. And, you know, again, like as high school students, we're all very curious, as well as our listeners right now, about, you know, what is like the industry really like, and, you know, how to get their exposure, what steps they should take. So what is one key catchphrase or like piece of advice that you want to give to the listeners?
Yeah, look, I will say this thing which I always tell people: creation is very hard. And most of the time I would see, like, you know, you sit with 5 people in a room and a blank whiteboard, you discuss a concept, there's a real hesitation for the first person to go and draw something on the whiteboard. It's very easy for the remaining 4 people to criticize what has been drawn on the whiteboard, right? I always emphasize it's so important early days. Even if you guys look at it, you should be very proud of yourself, by the way, for doing this whole thing. This is creation, right? When you create something, you're not just learning something on your own, but you're contributing that back to the society. When you publish this podcast, there'll be hundreds and thousands of people who can benefit from it. But you guys took the initiative to create it. And that's what I always emphasize on. Find time, and that starts, Saransh, you said, it starts with curiosity, because if you're not curious, you're not going to create anything. But don't let that curiosity sit as a debate, as a talking point, as a crib, right? Complain. Do something about it, right? And that's do something people feel is, oh, it has to be at this mega scale. No, it doesn't have to be. This is, by the way, complex thing you guys are doing. I can't figure out like how you're figuring it out, but it's something you guys are doing together to create something, and you figured out over time how to do it right. And you've had, you know, many people come and speak here. I would just highly encourage that. I didn't do enough of that, and the reason I talk about it is because I regret why I didn't do enough of that. That's the reason I have so much appreciation for art, because it's a lot of creation. It's hard to come up with concepts and turn it into an idea which you can put out there and sometimes be laughed at, right? And be open for that criticism. So for that one person to go and create something on the whiteboard, knowing that the 4 people right after that is ready to jump and criticize, takes guts, right? And I think that courage of creativity should not get lost. I think, and going back full circle to AI, it's helping us in just doing it more easily. And that's why I welcome it, by the way. But I think just in general, that's my, leaving note, that turn your curiosity into creating something, because otherwise it kind of dies.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty important to think. Like, just be curious always. You don't have to just be curious in high school. You can be curious in college, even at your age. Like when you're when you're retired, you can still be curious about everything. And I think it's a great ending note for all of our guests to see.
Of course.
Thank you for having. Thank you for coming on, Mr.
And congrats, by the way, on awesome SAT scores, and best of luck for college, guys. It's a great time, and you just beyond the podcast, I think, look, you should take one comfort in you're kind of seeing yourself at that transition point of the society, right? You're seeing so much, right? I used to talk about, like, I've seen so much in my life growing up in humble beginnings. There was no technology. Our TV came, I don't know, maybe when I was in high school. And we used to take pride in, like, we have seen so much that we can relate and have so much context about things in life. I think you will have the same, right? You have seen so much in social media, internet, and now transitioning to AI, that just think about the benefits you'll have looking back and getting exposure to all of this early days.
And we're learning every day. And we learned a lot today.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yep.
Brewing success,
one sip at a time.